Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Christie.
How's it going?
Oh, I'm doing great. We've got Justin Benton on with us today.
When you go out and play 4 hours of golf, it's like a microcosm of life.
Justin is a serial entrepreneur working in the finance industry, and he has also had a brilliant idea to combine sales training with golf. And I can't believe, one, that this idea has not been attempted before because sales and golf is so readily available as a web domain. But then he asked me to be a part of it. We're going to talk about this and a lot more next. Hi, Christie.
Hi, Jeff.
We're recording now.
The many hours of conversation you and I have had, we've had probably half of them that haven't been recorded.
You know what we should do? We should start a podcast.
You think? Let's call it the Why and the Buy.
All right.
Welcome back to the Why and the Buy, everyone. My name is Christie Walters, and I'm joined, as usual, with my partner, Jeff Bajorek. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Christie. I am pumped today. I'm pumped today because I get to have my friend Justin Benton on, and we get to talk about two of my favorite things. Actually, I take this very, very seriously. These are two of absolutely my favorite things once you remove my family from the mix. But selling and golfing, there's not a more perfect day than to be selling on the golf course or golfing in a sales conference call or however else you want to combine those two things. But
sure.
I want to have the three of us, because you're a passionate golfer, I want to have the three of us talk about how closely interrelated sales, golf, and life are. So I'm really thrilled to have Justin here with us. How are you, Justin?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me, guys. What an honor.
He's officially the first guest that's ever been honored to be on the Why and the Buy podcast, Christie.
I don't think he's the very first. I do think we've had a couple people who've said something similar, at least, but we're honored to have you, Justin. I'm really excited. And I think I shared with you guys before we started recording that I was very surprised by how quickly I wrote down notes on this particular topic and how many different examples of sales and golf that overlap I could come up with in a very short period of time. So this is going to be a fun topic for me too.
So where does it all start? I mean, I started golfing because I got into sales, even though I wanted to kind of, keep those two separate. I knew a long time ago that if I got into golf, it would be a bad thing because I'd spend way too much time, way too much effort, and way too much money on it. 12 years later, I've spent way too much time, way too much effort, and way too much money on it. And, it's happened exactly the way I thought it might. But, I mean, where does it start for you, Justin? I mean, when did you start playing golf? Was it at all related to sales? And when did you notice the connection?
Well, that's funny. I actually was about 12 years old, as I recall, and I was living in Florida at the time. And my old man took me out to his country club. We started hitting a couple balls, and then he got me a lesson with Jim, I want to say Ladowski. There's a memory. And he gave me a lesson, and I hit a 5-iron, and I hit the 150-yard sign. And I was hooked. I was like, wow. And so literally I would beat balls for hours on end until blisters or ran out of golf balls. And then sometime around, I want to say 16 or so, when I started to get a taste of the workforce, I realized then and there that there was not a finer office in the world than a golf course. And I was going to be conducting business on a golf course as much as possible, if not exclusively. And so ever since then, I always figured out a way to meet other golfers and conduct business on golf courses, whether it's at country clubs or just hanging out with friends. That one thing leads to another. So that's the why there. So
I reluctantly got into golf because of sales, and you played golf and said, I've got to work this into my career somehow.
Absolutely. 100%. I literally knew in my, like I said, when I just started working, that I was going to be working on a golf course. That's going to be the most beautiful office in the world. And you can travel and see great things and, have, whether it's an executive retreat or is some type of, reward or spiff or sales trait, or just, meeting with vendors or meeting with clients or prospective vendors. I even have taken out prospective employees because there's so much you can learn hanging out and playing golf with somebody in 4 hours that you don't learn in that meeting room where everyone's just trying to say what the other person thinks they want to hear. Take them out and play golf, and you'll learn quite a bit about them and then some.
Yeah, nothing beats a 4-hour captive audience, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I've found that experience. I've had that experience myself.
Especially under the guise of let's just go knock it around, right?
Yeah.
You're polished in an interview. How many people have you seen that you've interviewed and then they haven't turned out to be exactly what they purported themselves to be in the interview, right? Because, well, you can prep for that. Oh, come on out. Let's go to the golf course. I'll pick up your round. Let's go. You buy lunch. I'll pick up the greens fees. And then, you're on the third fairway and you see them kick it out from behind a tree and then write down the wrong score, right? Or you just not only have they let their guard down, but over a 4-hour time period, it's really hard to be fake. It's truth serum, right? And that's even without the alcohol involved. I mean, it's a 4-hour experience with somebody, and there's
you
a
get
lot
to see
to
their
take
true
from
colors.
No question.
How do they handle adversity? Like something happens and, you can throw your clubs and swear, or you can keep it cool and understand your surroundings, that there is a little bit of a professional atmosphere going on here. And maybe you should try and keep it in check. And if you can't keep it in check, then, is that someone that I want to work with as an employee or what have you, whatever it is. You just get to learn. When you go out and play 4 hours of golf, it's like a microcosm of life. Life doesn't always go exactly the way you want. And you're going to have to hit out of some sales traps or sand traps that you either one
both
you didn't expect, and so how do they handle it? And we, it's all, life like golf is about overcoming adversity.
Yeah. I tell you, for me, I started playing golf with friends, and every now and then had an opportunity to play golf with work, but it was never an expected or in some cases even allowed in some of the organizations that I worked with early on in my career. But I worked for a boss a few years back who was an avid golfer. And it wasn't until because she totally embraced golfing in sales. So we were golfing with clients, we were golfing every opportunity we had. And I really had an opportunity to see how deep those relationships could go in that shorter period of time. So I think it's interesting to see how the game of golf as it is applied in the workforce has changed over the years. And I think people's view of whether or not golf is play or work, right, has changed.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it used to be that thing that you did after work, or it used to be that thing that you did to get away from everything. And now,
Yeah.
I mean, our lives are forced to be interconnected in so many ways, and you've got to mix business with pleasure. And sometimes that means mixing business with golf. I mean, I know that I go golfing sometimes just to meet people. I'll show up to the first tee by myself. That's fun. You know what I mean? You can call it networking, or, maybe you meet your new best friend. Maybe you meet your new best client. Maybe you'll meet just 3 people that you'll never talk to again unless you see them out there again. But I'll tell you what, it is a rare occasion when I've met a jerk. And I think, I don't remember who it was that said that golf was a good walk spoiled. I totally disagree. It is hard. Even if it's raining, I will play. I mean, it's just there's so many redeeming aspects of it. But I mean, to Justin's point with adversity, you learn a lot about yourself when you've got to get up and down, short-sighted with a downhill lie in a sand trap. And the golfers out there will know exactly how tough this shot is. And when you got to get up and down and win that match, and you do, or you got to get up and down and, you don't, but how do you handle it? Or how does your opponent handle that? If you're playing with a customer, you're going to learn about how they're going to receive you winning. You're going to learn about how they're going to receive them, failing in one way or another. If you're a sales guy, if you don't fail well, that's going to, hurt your reputation. I mean, the game tests you in ways that are synonymous with all the challenges that we run about just walking around on this planet.
Oh, I was thinking that it reminds me, you were saying, Jeff, about going up to the tee by yourself. And a funny story just popped in my head. I was playing with 2 others at the local country club out here, Satakoy Country Club, actually. We were sitting there getting rid of the tee off, and I was with my 2 friends. And, sometimes you want to just hang out with your friends. And this a person comes walking up to the tee and asks to join us. And I was kind of like, yeah, whatever, usually you have your little games and I'm like, cool, whatever. Yeah, come play. That's the golfer's way. And so who is it? Lo and behold, it's Cheech Martin from Cheech and Chong.
No
Wow.
way.
And yeah, so he's a member there and he comes and plays every once in a while. And he walked up by himself and asked to join us because golf, we've all been there. We've played by ourselves. And yes, there's some times where you can kind of work on some things, but then it's like, are you really focused and knocking things in? Well, Cheech just walked up because he wanted to play with us and we had a great time. He played 9 and had to take off. And then, it was kind of funny. Of course, he made some jokes. I was doing a cross-handed putt, which was, left hand low. And he's like, you're holding the putter wrong and all these kinds of things. He was just hilarious, as you can imagine. But welcoming that opportunity, whether you go out there by yourself and you get paired up with somebody or the other way around, it's just, you never know what you're going to get. More times than not, you speak the same language, you speak golf, you all have stories, you all have that, vernacular that you can go back and forth with. And, you have that common bond. So yeah, next time you have that option, go ahead and let that person join or you join and you never know what can happen.
You always have something to talk about.
Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Never a shortage there. What I love about when you compare golf and sales, and I was reading this just the other day, the game of golf is a long-term sport, right? So you don't win by the one big shot, right? It's the mundane, dull, run-of-the-mill stuff that you do to practice every single day. And so that kind of consistent, persistent behavior is something, Jeff, you and I have talked about more times than I can count on this podcast, and how important those elements of prospecting, learning how to be an active listener, learning how to read your audience, being able to do all of those things, even when the crowd isn't watching or maybe the numbers on the board aren't as big as they need to be. So there's just so many parallels between these two topics.
It's a grind. It's expensive. It hurts sometimes, but you have to keep going. You are going to fail way more often than you succeed. But when you succeed, it is the most glorious thing you can possibly imagine. And that is where the list of comparisons begins. There's just there's so many things, and yeah, you got to work at it. You got to work at it all the time. Sometimes you got to go hit balls when it's 45 degrees and windy out. Not you, Christie, because you live in sunny Atlanta where it's just pretty all the time. And I'm not even going to get to where Justin is in Orange County. Okay, fine. So sometimes I need to get out there when it's 45 degrees and windy and just hit balls if I want to get better. But that's the thing.
Right.
If it rains in California, we just wait a day. Or if it doesn't even have to rain, if it's a little misty, or if it actually gets into the lower 60s, you just wait a day, maybe 2, and you'll get your 70s and 80s back. Not to rub it in. It's just a fact.
Well, one of the things that I was thinking about is just as we were tossing around ideas here. The metaphor for on the putting green when it comes to selling, right? If you're a terrible lag putter, you got to make a lot of pressure putts in order to keep a good score. If you are a terrible salesperson as it relates to preparation, doing your homework, understanding how to communicate to your audience, understanding how to get your point across, understanding why they buy, then you're going to be forced to close hard for a lot of those sales to be converted. But, by contrast, if you're a great lag putter, everything's a tap in. Sometimes they don't even make you putt, right? You knock a 30-footer up to 6 inches, no one is going to watch you miss that. It's just, no, forget it. One, we know you're not going to miss it. You've done all the hard work. But you knock it up there to 6 inches.
Watch the Masters this year?
I did.
I just had to call that out.
I did, but you knock one up there nice and close, and in most friendly games, like in most friendly business situations, that's going to be conceded to you. If you do all the hard work, you do all the prep work, you do your homework and make sure that you know exactly why your customer would buy from you, and you can position that. A lot of times, the next logical thing, the sale closes itself. You don't have to be sweating. You go into that meeting to sign the papers, or to go through the last round of whether it's negotiations or whatnot. And you say, look, we've talked about all this stuff. to me, this just makes sense. We're going to go ahead, right? Yes. That is about as easy of a close as a 6-inch putt is to make. I'm not saying that sometimes they don't get missed, but what I'm saying is you just made your job easier because you did a lot of the stuff on the front end that you needed to. And these are the things that I think about. This is my disease. This is my psychosis. These are the things that I think about on the putting green. Okay.
So let me ask you guys, Justin, I'll start with you. How often do you practice? Talk about
Great
golf.
question. It's funny that right now we just had our third child. So my time.
Congratulations.
Thank you. She's just turned 1, so she's not quite a newborn. But anywho, my time's been a little spread out. But I do have my oldest who's 7, and now she's starting to get into golf. So I'm definitely working that in. To answer your question, when I go out and play golf with people who only play once a month, or, if it's a scramble, best ball kind of event, and they'll hit a bad shot and they'll get all angry and want to pound their clubs and curse and all that stuff. And I always will ask him once they've calmed down, and if I know them a little bit, I'll say, so how often do you practice? And they'll be like, well, never. And only when I play once a week or once a month. And I said, well, then you don't have a right to be mad, do you?
That's right. Yeah, you haven't earned that right.
Yeah, you have to practice at least as much as you play. And that's if you want to get better. And your practice, you should obviously work on your weaknesses, just like in sales. What are your weaknesses? Is it your presentation? Is it your closing? Is it your qualification? Whatever it is, it's the same thing with golf. And most times with golf, it's, working on your short game when you get closer to the hole. And just like in sales, the closing, asking for the sale and doing that as you get close to your sale, the similarities are there. And most people don't work on those things. And the ones that do, just like in the short game in golf, they can hit it all over the place like Seve Ballesteros, but as long as they get up and down and say par, hey, there you have it. Same thing with golf, even if you're not the best prospector or qualifier or even presenter, but when push comes to shove and you can get the sign on the line, which is dotted, you still make up for a lot of mistakes.
All right, Jeff, what about you?
I'm over here shaking my head because the advice that Justin gives to those people is some of the best golf advice that I ever got. I play with a friend of mine, and this was right after when I first started. Practice? I didn't have time to practice. I barely had time to play. I barely knew which end of the club to hold, right? Which means I should be practicing. But she looks at me and she says, Jeff, okay, so you didn't pull that shot off. What gives? And I said, well, I know I can hit it. She says, yeah, I know you can hit it too, but how often do you practice it? And practice is not going to increase your ability so much to hit different shots that you can't hit, but what it does is it increases the reliability that you can hit the shot when you need to.
Mm-hmm. Love that word.
And that rang with me. My attitude on the golf course changed. I started playing a little bit better because there wasn't quite as much pressure. At least I didn't get so down with my bad shots. And lo and behold, I started practicing more. I don't practice as often as I'd like to. I am kind of in the middle of a bunch of different projects right now. So it's also the beginning of the season here. We're starting, the weather's breaking. It's starting to be a lot more consistent. I can tell you I putt every day in my basement. I have a little carpet rolling green thing here. I'm not going to mention the name of the company because they're not a sponsor of this show, but
yet.
We are over 5,000 downloads, by the way. So
hey.
If you are a sponsor out there and are looking for a podcast to sponsor.
Okay, so it's a big moss putting green, and it's I get to practice my 10-footers all day while I'm on conference calls. It's great.
Nice.
But no, so I roll putts on a regular basis. I try to take the kids out when I can. But yeah, as the weather continues to break here, I'll try to hit balls a couple times a week, and I'll try to play once a week. I can't commit to the league. I got kids that play sports, and I've got kids who still like me, and a wife who really likes me and lets me play. So I shouldn't say lets me play. She hates it when I say that, but she encourages me to play. But she also knows that I won't abuse it. So it's trying to mix in the opportunities to practice when I can. And to me, though, I can say this. Speaking of practice. It's like therapy for me to go out on the range, plug in my headphones, and just knock down pitching wedges at a stick over there. It doesn't matter how many balls I've got in the bucket in front of me, I'll go get more. Turn some music on, just kind of zone out, and it's just a nice, slow, rhythmic practice or rudiment that things fall into place. And I do some of my best thinking when I'm actively moving, but not actively thinking about the movement I'm making, if that makes sense.
It does.
And it's just like, taking a walk or meditating or anything. There's a lot of overlap there in terms of the benefits. And, I get a lot of thinking done about sales and life while I'm golfing.
Well, I think that's one of the things that golf really is so beneficial for those of us who enjoy it, is that it really is. You want to talk about taking your mind off the day-to-day grind or the stresses or whatever it is that is normally right there in your forefront. You go out there in a golf course, and then after about your third shot, you are completely engrossed with making that white ball do what it's supposed to do.
Yep.
You got to go in the hole, you got to go left or right. And then, you're completely transported to another world. I mean, your whole focus has changed, and your mind is allowed to kind of go into an alternate reality. And then, yes, you can get away from maybe the things, the day-to-day grind things. And then it gives you that space to think, well, what about, this is a new way or a new angle of approaching this challenge or getting this, this proposal in front of somebody or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. So that's another thing I just love about golf. It really gives you that alternative world where you can just kind of step away from life.
It's interesting too that, from my perspective as a somewhat inexperienced golfer, so I love the game of golf, but for years I played once or twice a year. And that was it. I'd play at a tournament for a client or some other best ball scramble event. And that was all I had. I didn't go to the range. I didn't belong to a league. And until a couple of years ago, when I joined a local league here and got some regular play with folks that actually knew what they were doing. And ultimately I had to invest. I had to invest time to practice, and I had to invest in coaching. I needed somebody to help me because I couldn't figure it out on my own. It seems like it might be intuitive to hold the golf club a certain way and hit the ball.
Not.
It's not. Yeah. So it's interesting. The best golfers invest in instruction, but a lot of us approach it from a symptomatic perspective, right? So my drive isn't so great. I'm not hitting it so far. So I'm going to go and get some swing mechanics on my drive, right?
Who
so
are we kidding? Christie, that's a lie. You're not going to go get a lesson. You're going to buy a new driver. That's what the golf industry is based on.
This is true. I golf with people who do that, by the way. And they've offered me their $400 clubs that are only 2 years old. It's a totally different world, right?
And to me, I think that's yet another parallel between sales and golf and business is nobody made it to the top of anything, whether it's golf or business, without help from someone else. You look at the golfers these days, and it's not just a swing coach, it's a mind coach, it's a dietitian, it's a trainer, it's a personal assistant, it's a social media help. You have all of this team, this crew of people that are surrounding and helping these golfers get to where the greatest golfers. You see the entourages on the PGA Tour, and the same is true in business. You have to take on a mentor or you have to learn from others to get up that ladder as fast as you can. I always say there's two ways to learn. You can learn from your own mistakes, or you can learn from someone else's mistakes. Mm-hmm. It's a lot less painful to learn from someone else's mistakes, but sometimes we have to make those mistakes ourselves and learn from them. But yeah, having that mentor, having someone who is an expert, whether it's a swing coach or a sales coach or a business coach, that can give you that little advice or that little tweak, that little nugget that will, get you to that next level.
Well, you know what it is? You know what it is? As you're saying that, I'm thinking, if I've got a client, they can't learn from my mistake. They can't. They have to. I think they have to make it themselves. But here's the thing. If I tell them about something to look out for, or if I tell them about a situation that I've been in previously, they'll be paying attention. And when they're paying attention, they will recognize the mistake and be able to correct it 6 months, 9 months, a year before they make it again, or they make it a series of times and then have to learn from it, right? It's taught where you can't necessarily learn from someone else as much as you can learn from someone else how to learn from yourself. If that's not using too many words, it's just a different perspective to be able to be present enough, like you have to be present on the golf course, but to recognize the situations that you're in for what they are and what they aren't. That's where a coach comes in. I can tell you the first time I've been working with a swing coach for, 5 or 6 years now. And one of the first things I learned from him when he put me on video is I learned that it wasn't that bad. The ball wasn't going where I wanted to go. Okay. But I put him on there, he puts me up on it. He's filming it on his iPad or whatever. And he shows me the swing. I'm like, it doesn't look half bad. I almost look like an athlete there. And he's like, no, Jeff, you're this close. But now what you need to do is you need to work on this, and this. And I've learned a lot about coaching from my golf coach because he simplifies everything and he boils it down to one thing. Yeah. Or maybe 1.5 or 2 things, right? Like it's, okay, look, you're doing this and you're doing this and you're doing this. But if you just turn your shoulders more and get the club further away from you on the backswing, all that other stuff falls into place. So quit worrying about the symptoms and let's look at the underlying cause and just turn more. And so now I've got one thing to work on, and every once in a while it clicks. You go shoot 75, you're fired up. It's the best day of your life. And, it's because you had someone to just show you that you were closer than you thought you were.
Yeah, and I love that example because it gives you're focused in on the little things that you can control. Too often, I think I find clients that just feel like nothing is within their control. And we spend a lot of time talking about, what really fits that definition of in my control or not. And that ability to hone in and say, no, it's not just that you're not meeting your number. You're not doing enough prospecting. You're not qualifying well enough or talking to the right individuals, or maybe your follow-up needs some work. Those little things, much like your swing mechanics, where you don't just go and say, okay, I need to hit it and I need to hit it far. That doesn't tell you anything. You can't incrementally improve that way. And the same thing goes with sales coaching, is that you've got to say, no, here are the things, let's focus on this first, right? Let's focus on making sure your follow-up is consistent. Let's focus on making sure you're talking to the right individuals. Those are the swing mechanics in sales.
Right. So
there are going to be so many metaphors here, pictures painted. It's amazing.
We've got 3 more episodes in the pipeline for sure. Speaking of pipelines, I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about the successes that come from coaching. Justin, you have a hole-in-one. Tell us that story. What day was it? What day of the week was it? How long ago was it? What was the temperature? What ball were you using? What club did you hit? What hole were you playing? What golf club were you at? You know all that stuff, but I'll bet you can't remember what you had for dinner last night.
This is true. This is true. No, that's good. No, it was actually at Pelican Hill. It's a beautiful golf course down in Orange County by Newport. It actually has 2 greens on the ocean. 2 greens. It's a 2-green par 3. And it's actually not that long of a par 3. It's only about 125 yards that day. Exactly. And I had read a book called Golf 54. Check it out. And basically you do all of your thought process behind the ball, and then you just step up like a free throw, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, make your shot and go. So the first par 3 I played that day, I did that process, stepped behind the ball, thought everything through, and then I just stepped up and hit it. And it went behind the pin, and it rolled just barely missing. And I was like, wow, that was cool. And then there you go, on hole number 13 out there on the south course of Pelican Hill, I just visualized the ball going in the hole and stepped up and hit it, and it just backed up right into the back of the cup. So that's my hole-in-one story.
That's very cool.
It's like making the sale of your life. And that mindset, when you're playing well, you're not thinking about anything. You're not thinking about your mechanics. You're not thinking about, okay, I need to make this kind of swing, and make sure you turn your shoulders, make sure that left wrist is bowed, and make sure that you're not thinking about all that stuff. You step up, you hit the ball. This is what I need to do. This is what I'm going to go do. The same thing when you're selling. When you're on fire. You walk into a customer, you walk into a prospect, you have a great meeting, there's a great back and forth, and you just feel like everything is coming to you effortlessly. The best thing you can do is go and make some more calls, right? But that mindset, because when you're feeling it, when you're feeling the flow, happy, like a carousel, everything goes around and up and down, right? Like from Happy Gilmore. You're there, you're in it, and You believe that every shot you hit is going to end up the way you wanted it to. And that is what people fail to realize. What a lot of people fail to realize is that is a place you can put yourself with the right discipline and the right training. And it's one thing to put yourself in that place if you're shooting free throws or you're, playing baseball or golf or whatever it is. Most people don't take that approach to their business lives either. When you go into a sales call, you've got to be on top of your game. Why don't more people, and Christie, I'll ask you this, why don't more people put themselves into that mind frame when they go in to that situation?
It's work.
Right.
It's work. And, sometimes it's also perspective, right? So if you haven't worked with a coach before, if you haven't worked with a mentor who understands what that consistent, persistent behavior means, and it has taught you how to go through that type of experience, then you're winging it. And oftentimes, much like swinging a club, the intuition of how to handle something isn't necessarily the right path to take.
You're not good enough to wing it yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I was thinking too on that thing you said about those 6-foot putts. It reminded me of another thing when you're walking into those challenging, sales meetings, or when you're in the zone and you're hitting hole-in-ones, is confidence. And Tiger Woods, when he first came on tour, he was known as a great putter. And why was he known as a great putter? Because his lag putts, even on a 20-footer or a 40-footer, would sometimes go 6 feet past the hole. And he was so confident that he could make that 6-footer, it didn't matter. His confidence was, he was always going right at the hole. There was no lag putt in Tiger Woods, because he knew if he missed that putt by being aggressive and going for that putt to make it, he could make the 6-foot comebacker. Focusing on what you want to have happen versus, lack of confidence is focusing on or fearing what you don't want to have happen. And we all can relate to that in golf. And I remember when Tiger Woods was, the bee's knees. And I was there at Torrey Pines when he was winning his 14th major. And I was there on Monday when he was playing Rocco Immediate. And I watched every stroke. And, the confidence that he had was unbelievable. He was playing on one leg. And as he was getting the trophy, I turned to my wife and I said, you know what, with all these injuries this guy's having and all this Navy SEAL training, he's got to keep himself healthy. This could be his last major. He's not guaranteed to win the majors of Jack Nicklaus of 18 because nobody's bigger than golf. Nobody's bigger than sales. You got to keep your mentality right. You got to keep your head in the game, and confidence can be very fickle in golf and sometimes in sales too. So just you got to figure out a way to focus on what you want to have happen.
That's such a great point. Nobody is bigger than the game, whether it's golf or sales or business or life. It's important to remember that. I think that's a great place to kind of wrap up here. So Justin, I want to ask you. We ask this of everybody. What is your why? Why do you get out of bed every morning and do what you do?
Well, great question. My why is I would talk about how we met. I've always loved sales, and I've been in sales my entire career, and I've always loved golf. I always knew that I was going to be doing sales and business on a golf course somehow, some way. And when we met and talked about the teachings and principles of Jeffrey Gittimore, it just all clicked. When you and I started talking about all this and how do we put sales and golf together and get out there and combine those two, it was just, as the way we were just kind of hitting the high marks and everything seemed to be clicking and making sense that, everyone owes it to themselves to find out what they love and to do it. I mean, life is short, and find out what you love and do it. And I believe that everybody should be so lucky as to be able to love what you do and jump out of bed and do it. So that's what I love. I love sales. I love golf. I love combining the two. And how cool is that?
How cool indeed. I love that.
That's so awesome. So, Christie, what do we say every week?
When you understand your why, your hows and your whats get much better.
Justin Benton sounds like a guy who understands his why.
I think it was well said. Justin, we thank you so much for joining us on the Why and the Buy today. I hope you'll come back and talk more about golf.
Thanks for having me, and we'll talk about golf, sales, and all the great things that those two share.
Okay.
Justin and I were on the phone talking about golf and talking about selling. What else is there to talk about, really? And we were talking about one of our favorite places in the world. And Justin, where was that place?
Well, exactly. It was Bandon Dunes Golf Resort, but Pacific Dunes, number 4, 150-foot cliffs overlooking the Pacific Ocean. We started talking about it, and we both realized we both had such a special experience at that hole.
And when we started talking about that hole, you said that you've got the picture of that hole framed over your desk in your office. And I was talking about when I walked up onto the tee box at number 4, how I felt like I got punched in the gut with gratitude. We started talking a little bit further about the resort. We started talking a little more about selling, and it was a natural conclusion to come to that we needed to do an event. We're both sales trainers and sales coaches, and we've got the most beautiful location, really, in the world to have a golf and sales training event. So we decided to put one together.
Yeah, we both have had experience in our past of putting tournaments together or going on executive retreats or, doing really cool golf trips. And when you combine sales and winning attitude and who wants to have it in some stuffy, boring room, right? How cool would it be to go out at these beautiful golf locations like Bandon Dunes, have a Scottish hearty breakfast as they serve out there, and then have a training and talk about, your business challenges and your sales challenges and how to overcome them and your winning attitude and the things that you need to work on. And then go out and play the most beautiful golf courses in the world, and then talk about the golf courses and the sales training while you're playing golf, after the golf, and then you do it all over again. And that's how salesandgolf.com and the Bandon Dunes sales experience all came together.
So this Labor Day weekend in 2017, we're going to Bandon. There's room for 30 students, 30 executives. And what we're going to do is put together an experience. 4 nights, 3 rounds, 3 sales, attitude, and business workshops with 2 world-class experts. You're going to have an unbelievable time. Your business is going to profit. Your network is going to profit. And your life is going to benefit as a result for checking this out. So I want you to go right now to salesandgolf.com, exactly how it's spelled. There is a tab up in the top part of the website for the featured golf experience. That's where I want you to click to find more information. Or you can send an email to sales@salesandgolf.com, or you can send an email to sales@justinbenton.com, or you can send an email to me at jb@jeffbajorek.com. Any way you want to, we can be gotten a hold of. We'll get right back to you, and we'll tell you a little bit more about the trip.
When I do the show notes, I'll include the link there. And the event is when?
Labor Day weekend, August 31st through September 3rd. Probably fly home September 4th because flying out of Oregon is very difficult. Well, flying out of that particular place in Oregon is very difficult.
Perfect.
That was fun.
Yeah, thank you again for joining us. That was wonderful. It was nice to meet you.
Hey, thanks for listening to us on the Why and the Buy podcast. If you like us, tell us. Send us a message at The Why and the Buy on Twitter, or leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you got this podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Talk to you next week. How about the music on this podcast? We call them our house band. They call themselves Haskins, and they're based out of Plymouth, Michigan. If you want to hear more from them, go to haskinsmusic.com and check them out.